Absolutely.
When I first met you, you were there coming as a business person.
Sure.
But when I heard you talk, I'm like, this guy sure sounds like a politician. You know, because one or two things, he was going to be a politician or a preacher. Now, I'm not sure which one. Maybe they kind of like go together. What was it the moment that you looked up and said, I want to do this and run for office? And why Senate and not one of the other offices that are out there?
Well, location plays a part in that. And so I live in Northern Virginia. I live 2 miles from the Pentagon. That is a staunchly Democrat area, but I have 2 daughters. My oldest is in high school. And so as a military child, she...
I've lived everywhere. Mine.
Yeah, she had the unfortunate aspect of moving about 7 different times while she was growing up, and so we made the promise that when she was in high school, we wouldn't move again. And so I retired out of the Pentagon, working with the House and the Senate at the federal level. We've stayed there, and so that's a Democrat-controlled area.
Okay.
As far as it comes to why we run for office, it goes back to leadership. I think that if you look across the board in almost any area of life right now that where politics is involved, and it's involved everywhere, we've seen a degradation in our education system, in our border policy, and in our military who can't meet retention, they can't meet recruiting. We got foreign policy problems all across the Middle East, and we have been for a while. We have a political system that has incentivized the outsourcing of American jobs for the last 30 years. And so we have an opioid crisis, we have a suicide crisis, we have a lot of homelessness in America right now, in Virginia right now. We have to start to reverse some of these problems. I don't want to harp on them.
Okay.
I just want to make sure that in the context of why we're running, is that we actually have to solve some of these things. And right now, I don't believe we have political leaders that are focused on it. We're focused more on fundraising. We're focused more on politics in the next election cycle, rather than actually solving the problems that the American people, that the people of Virginia put these guys in office to solve. And so if they're not going to do it, I believe that I'm fitted to do it. And so I've rallied the team together to come up with an all-American agenda on the play of the 82nd Airborne Division.
All-Americans?
Because one, we need a government that works for all Americans, not just a few, not just the people who have all the money, and not just the people who are in poverty, but the vast majority of us in between. And that's small business owners, that's workers, that's blue-collar folks that are trying to make their way and live that American dream, or achieve the American dream. Should the government get off their backs and stop regulating them, overtaxing them, and overburdening them. And so I think I say we need a government that comes from the people. I think right now in a lot of areas we have a government that comes at the people. And so to reverse that, we're going to need people who come from a regular working class background like myself. I'm the son of a ranch hand. My mom works at a grocery store. We don't come from money. I spent 2 decades in service to the nation.
You mean you don't get rich being in the Army?
Yeah.
No,
you don't get rich in money anyway. You get rich in
the experiences and the things that you learn and the relationships that you build are lifelong. Let me ask you this on the political side as well. What do you say to a person who says, everyone says that, and then they get there and then it's more of the same? What's going to be different when Eddie Garcia takes office?
Well, I'm serving because I want to care and take and prioritize the same kind of blue-collar working class people that I come from. I don't get overly concerned with political parties or positions or ideology. I care about people more than I care about politics. I care about principles more than I care about party. And so I come from a family that's mostly Democrat. Growing up,
I was going to ask you that. So when did you make that turn, and what was it to go to the Republican side?
Well, I joined the military at 17, so I was in the military before I could even vote. And so the military pretty ingrains in you nonpartisanship, bipartisanship. We're Americans before we're any party.
Yes.
And so I didn't really even think about politics for many years. It wasn't until in my 30s and I got a chance to rise to, I became an officer. I got to work at some pretty high levels of government, and then working with the House and the U.S. Senate, where you start to look at where your values align. And my values are faith and family and freedom, freedom in the economic sense, and so it naturally gravitated towards a more conservative mindset. And right now, the Republican Party is the party that aligns most with me. No person, no party, no platform ever is 100% my way. But what I am focused on is people, working people that need a hand up, that need the government off their backs, that are trying to achieve that American dream of owning their own home, owning their own small businesses, they have good education for their children and more control and empowerment as much as possible in their hands rather than the bureaucrats or the politicians in D.C.
One of Mike Eddie Garcia is here with us. How can we find out information about you out there?
EddieGarciaVA.com. That's my website, EddieGarciaVA.com. But if I put a bunch of content online, so if you're on social media, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, or YouTube, I have a YouTube channel, Eddie Garcia VA, on all of those things. You can find out and listen to me speak on a whole variety of issues. I think it's important to be transparent with the people. I think that politicians of the past, their power is the fact that they say very little, they don't do very much, and people just assume that they see the name that the person is a good person. So to beat that type of politician or political apparatus, I got to be the exact opposite. So I'm working my tail off right now, meeting grassroots people, working people all across the Commonwealth, and I'm putting all my information, all my talks and speeches online so that people understand where I come from, what I say, the context in which I say them, because I mean what I say and I say what I mean. And we may or may not disagree, but at least you know where I stand. I think that's important for any leader that's going to ask for your vote and your support.
On the mic of my man Eddie Garcia, and now it's with us. We're at the Hilton right here. We're chilling, having a great conversation. Eddie, so, sir, your party is kind of, here all around. How do you separate some of this stuff? And when people come at you and say, I can't get with Republicans because of X, or I can't. We've had the conversation about people understanding and working with people.
Sure.
How do you explain that to people when they say, all right, here's Eddie Garcia, the policies that but some of the things I hear on the national level, I see some of the other people doing. Explain how you run with that and sort of separate yourself from some of that goes on.
Well, I think authenticity matters, and a lot of people are cynical against politicians, and they're rightfully so, because politicians typically say something and then they go and do the opposite of it. And so the real crux of the matter is what makes you different than the other guy.
Okay.
And I try to give my story. Again, I don't come from money. My dad works a ranch hand. He's a ranch hand. He's 62 years old right now. He didn't used to work a ranch hand or work a ranch. He doesn't own his own ranch. He works in the hot sun. He's never made over $55,000 a year. He works. He doesn't have a retirement account. He has no pension. He can't afford health insurance. He hasn't seen a doctor in nearly a decade. My mom works at a grocery store. She doesn't own it. She doesn't manage it. She gets up at 5 in the morning. She drives 40 miles. She puts on a warm coat. She goes in the back of the freezer and she cuts fruit for today's produce.
So you are the American dream.
I am the American dream.
Yes, you have lived. You're the success story of parents who put in the hard work, and here you are running for office.